Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bimmer barn. I know it's been a while since you last saw me and I did get a haircut, but if you want some updates as to what I've been up to, I'm gonna have those at the end of the video. For now, we're gonna focus on today's topic, and that is how to change your BMW subframe bushings. So let's go ahead and get right into it, and I'll show you guys what you're gonna need in order to do this job. Now here's the toolkit that is gonna save us a ton of time today and avoid the trouble of having to get out the sledgehammer and the torch in order to get our old bushings out. This is a 6-piece subframe bushing removal tool. This one is specific to the X5 from 1999 to 2005, 2006, and it will not fit any other car. I wish it would. I wish that you could use this on other subframes, E39s, E46s, stuff like that, but this is very specific to these bushings made for this X5 chassis. Now in the kit here, we've got everything that we need in order to remove the subframe bushing without completely removing our subframe, and that's gonna save us a ton of time as compared to doing all that other work that we would usually do. Now going through the kit, it does both functions of removing as well as installing our new bushing. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. This is our main cup piece right here, and this is where our old bushing is going to fall into once we compress it out of the subframe. You'll see that there's a hole at the bottom here, and basically what we'll be doing is taking this threaded rod here, and this is going to go through the subframe bushing, and then the cup is going to be inserted with our nut on the back side. All these pieces are made out of cold steel, so they should be pretty resistant to wear and tear, but I would not recommend that you use impact tools on these because that's going to possibly damage the threads. But this is a 24mm nut. You're going to have it up there, and this top plate right here is going to thread onto the upper dowel, and this one is exactly the width of the original BMW bushing. So this is going to squeeze through just like that through the subframe, and then our bushing will be trapped in here. So we'll have the bushing out, and then to install the new one, I'm gonna go ahead and take this all back apart, because this time you're actually going to use a different set of tools. You're going to use this medium-sized spacer right here. That's going to have your bushing on top of it, and it's going to go just like that. And then this extra large plate is going to go on the top end, and then you're going to compress that nut, and it's going to squeeze the bushing into the subframe. Now today we're only going to be using this tool to remove the subframe bushings, which is super difficult, but it is also very difficult to get them back in. That's why this tool is going to help you out for both those situations. Luckily, we don't have to install the OEM bushings because I have an aftermarket set to be installing. Here I have a box from PowerFlex with our new bushings that we're going to be installing, and these ones are not made out of rubber like the factory ones, but instead they're made out of polyurethane, which is going to provide a ton more sporty feel to the bushings, but more importantly, these aren't going to wear down like a traditional rubber bushing that would lose its moisture over time, dry out, and then fail like the ones that are clunking in my car right now. So these are really cool in that they're made out of a soft polyurethane, not too stiff. These aren't specifically their race bushings, and they're going to be a ton more comfortable than a fully solid bushing. But what we have here is an interior dowel, which is going to go into the middle of the bushing there, and then these outer pieces are going to sandwich around the subframe. They're going to be a lot easier to install than the rubber bushing, and once they're in, we'll never have to change them again. So let's go ahead and remove the old bushings so we can get these babies in. So in order to remove and replace our subframe bushings, we're gonna have to start by lifting the car up and removing the rear tires. Now, the rear bumper has to come off, and if you're like me and you have the optional towing package, then you're also gonna have to remove the trailer module. The rear bumper has these two bolts. These are a size T50, and they simply loosen, come out the bottom, and these release the bumper from its hanging bracket. You'll first have to remove the fender liners and also the plastic trim that's underneath the bumper, and then you should be able to shimmy it off the car. Now, as you can see, I have the towing package. So there's a few 17mm bolts up here to remove. And once we zip those off, as well as the one bolt that holds it to the subframe underneath the car, then we can actually remove it. We're going to be removing these mufflers because it gives us better access to the subframe, and we're just going to be lowering the subframe, not removing it completely, but we do need to remove the exhaust first. Now, unfortunately, one of my exhaust hangers was stripped and I wasn't able to remove it, so I had to pry it out of the bushing manually. But once I had those mufflers out of the way, you can see I'm lowering the heat shield. And then I'm going to remove the strut from the lower control arms, and that's going to allow the subframe to come down rather than be attached to the car still. Now, I like to use a jack and simply balance it right in the middle of the differential, and that way, once you have a little bit of upward pressure on the subframe, that's going to keep it from coming down and falling on you when you remove the main subframe bolts. Now, these things are really heavy duty. I think it's a 21mm socket that you're going to need, and I like to use an impact gun because these would take a long time to get out by hand. But now with the subframe lowered on all four corners, we can go ahead and remove one bolt completely. We're going to work on this corner, and as you can see, we have this washer here. Pay attention to where that installs. But with the washer out of the way, we can go ahead and install our subframe bushing tool. Now, the upper piece here, it does align perfectly with the factory bushing, and then the lower cup goes around the subframe. Now, what I didn't notice was that the cup actually has two tabs, which you can see here, and you should be ideally lining those up with the subframe bushing. So that's what I did here. I had to reposition it, but even after I repositioned it and I tried tightening it down, I noticed that the cup and the tool itself was deforming instead of the bushing coming out. Now, if you have this situation, slow down. You don't want to break or deform your tool. What you want to do is apply some heat, and this can be done with a torch or a heat gun, and heating up the outside of the subframe is going to loosen up the rubber that's connecting it to the bushing, and that's going to help the bushing come out a lot easier. So take your time. Remember, don't use an impact tool on this tool. And then once you've got the subframe bushing out of the tool itself, then you can go ahead and inspect it. And as you can see, mine was completely torn apart in two pieces. It's destroyed, and this is the reason why I was getting a knocking noise from the rear of my car. So we're going to be upgrading them with the PowerFlex bushings, but you can see that they are split in two parts, and the upper section is different from the lower section. So you're going to want to make sure that you note that they do have part numbers as well, so you can get the orientation correct, and then you just have to install the dowel into the middle of the bushing once it's all done. These bushings go in a lot easier than the factory would. In fact, you can see I'm installing them by hand. The factory bushing, you would need to reuse the tool that we just had, and that's going to press the new bushing in just like the old one came out. Now, these bushings, since they are a two-piece or technically three-piece bushing, they have that dowel that you need to insert. I would recommend using the included silicone lube. That's what it's for, and that lubricates the dowel that goes through the bushing, and in case that bushing moves at all in the future, there will be silicone there to avoid any squeaking. Now, don't forget to reinstall that washer and make sure it lines up with the dowel, because it seats really nicely on that PowerFlex dowel. And then you can go ahead and put the bottom washer back on with the main subframe bolt and tighten it back up loosely, so you can go ahead and move on to the next corner. Now in my experience, doing the front bushings was easier than doing the rear, and in fact I didn't have to use any of the blowtorch in order to heat up the bushing, but you can see that it is torn apart just like the rear one. So all 4 of my bushings were past death and ready to be replaced. I decided to do the PowerFlex bushings because they are going to be lasting longer and they have a more solid feel, which I prefer on my vehicles. These may not be the bushing for everyone. If you want an OEM ride quality, go for the regular rubber. Just keep in mind they probably will need to be replaced again later down the road. Now once you've changed out all the bushings, you can go ahead and raise your subframe by tightening down all the bolts, and then we're going to go ahead and start reinstalling everything to get the subframe back into place. What I noticed was that I could not align the strut with the lower control arm, and what I had to do was actually remove the sway bar on one side. Now with the sway bar disconnected, this means that you're only putting pressure on one corner of the suspension instead of linking the rear and thus putting pressure on the whole rear end of the car. And once I did this, I was able to get the struts connected. Don't forget to reinstall the sway bar and then move on to the exhaust, the trailer module, and the rear bumper. So that is going to conclude our video for today. Now, if you wanted to know what I've been up to recently, you know, it was just kind of the end of the year, December, that I decided to take off from YouTube and focus on some other business ventures that I've been working on, 3D printing, Turo businesses, and some other things that are in the works. But 2023 is going to be really exciting because of some of the builds and some of the companies that we're going to be partnering with this year. A lot of cool stuff is coming to the channel, and I'm trying to take you guys on a journey as I continue to develop this channel and create better content, stuff that you guys want to see, and stuff that, more importantly, I want to make here at home, because it's so important as a creator that you find the fun in your job. And sometimes, you know, after making 3 videos a week for 2 years, it felt like it just became a lot to have so many videos and a lot of a burden on my shoulders. So I decided to step back and make less videos and actually branch out. So I'm going to be doing more videos on my second channel, kind of my personal channel, where I get to take things apart, mess with electronics, electric bikes, drones, all sorts of new hobbies that I'm getting into. And you're going to be able to find all that content on my other channel. This channel is always going to be focused on the Bimmer barn and BMW builds, DIYs. But I hope that you guys are excited for what's to come in this year. If you have any recommendations or ideas, be sure to let me know down in the comments below and tell me what builds you're up to this year in 2023. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and as always, we will see you in the next video.